At 21, Petra Voss had $84, a mechanical engineering textbook she hadn't been able to sell back, and a certified letter that had been forwarded 3 times before it found her at a shelter in Flagstaff, Arizona. The letter was from a county assessor's office in a small town in eastern New Mexico called Morro Wells. It stated that a parcel of land, 4.2 acres, described only as improved with a below-grade structure, had been in tax delinquency since 2019 and was scheduled for public auction. The letter had been addressed to the estate of Werner Voss, deceased, and forwarded to his next of kin, which was Petra, which she knew because the caseworker who had helped her sort through her grandfather's minimal affairs 3 years ago had told her she was the next of kin and that there was nothing to inherit. Apparently, the caseworker had been working from an incomplete list. There was a second page. It was a photocopy of a handwritten note, brittle at the fold lines, that the assessor's office had found clipped to the inside of the property file. The note was in her grandfather's handwriting. She knew it from the birthday cards. The only correspondence he had ever sent her, 1 per year, until he died, always with a crisp $5 bill inside that she had always spent on something practical. The note said, "If my granddaughter Petra Voss presents herself at auction, the bid is $1. If she does not present herself, hold the auction open. She will come. She is the kind of person who comes." Werner Voss, 2017. She had read the note 4 times in the shelter common room, while a television played in the corner and the smell of institutional coffee moved through the space. She did not know what a below-grade structure was. She looked it up. It meant underground. She packed her bag the next morning. Morro Wells was a town of 1,100 people on the eastern slope of the Sacramento Mountains, the kind of town that had been founded for one industry and survived the industry's end through sheer inertia and the particular stubbornness of people who like it where they are. The assessor's office was in the courthouse, an adobe building on the main street that had been built in 1934 and maintained with the respect due a building that had outlasted everything around it. The woman behind the counter was named Dolores. She was somewhere past 60, with reading glasses on a beaded chain and the careful composure of a woman who had been expecting this visit for some time. She looked at Petra's ID and looked at the letter and looked at Petra. "Werner's granddaughter," she said. "Yes, ma'am. He said you'd come." She said it without surprise. She opened a drawer and produced a file folder, thick with a rubber band around it. "He left this here in 2017. Asked us to hold it for whoever came to claim the parcel." She set it on the counter. "The auction is whenever you're ready." "Now," Petra said. Dolores produced a single sheet, the auction record, and Petra signed it and handed over the dollar bill she had kept separate in the front pocket of her bag since Flagstaff. And Dolores stamped the sheet and gave her a copy and a key ring with 2 keys on it, and a hand-drawn map on a piece of graph paper that showed the property location relative to the highway. "What's out there?" Petra said. Dolores considered her answer with some care. "Werner built something," she said, starting in 1987. "He worked on it until about 2015. He didn't tell people what it was. People guessed." She looked at the file on the counter. He was a private man. He was also, she paused, a thorough one. She slid the file folder across the counter. "He said to give you this when you arrived," she said. "He said to tell you. Read it before you go out there. He said you'd want to see it first, and then you'd want to go." She read the file in the courthouse parking lot, with the windows down and the dry high-altitude air moving through. The file contained the property deed, clear title, already transferred to her name through a mechanism her grandfather had arranged in 2017 with a local attorney. The deed to a 2007 pickup truck, same transfer. The title documents for a solar array and battery bank registered as improvements to the property. A passbook for a credit union account in Alamogordo, showing a balance of $31,882.44, with her name on the beneficiary designation. And a letter, typed, single-spaced, 3 pages, signed in his handwriting. She did not read the letter yet. She read the technical documents first, because she was a mechanical engineering student and the technical documents were in her language. The solar array was a 14-kilowatt system, installed in 2009 and upgraded in 2014. The battery bank was a 40-kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate system, installed in 2016. The well was 380 feet deep, drilled in 1989 with a submersible pump rated to 30 years. The below-grade structure, as described in the improvement records, was a poured concrete structure, 2,400 square feet, at a depth of 18 feet, accessed by a single entry. The walls were 16 inches of reinforced concrete. The ceiling was 24 inches. The structure had been built, the records showed, to FEMA P361 standards, which she looked up on her phone, the federal standard for community safe rooms. It was not, she understood now, a doomsday bunker in the way people used that term, not the province of paranoia, but of engineering. Her grandfather had built a structure designed to last and to protect. He had built it the way he had apparently done everything, thoroughly to spec. Without announcing it, she put the technical documents back in the file. She picked up the typed letter. It began, Petra. If you're reading this, you did what I expected you to do, which is come. I want to explain some things before you drive out there, because I would rather you understand what you're looking at before you look at it. She read it once, quickly, to understand the shape of it. Then she put it in her jacket pocket and started the truck, which started on the first turn of the key, because of course it did, because her grandfather had maintained it and left it in the care of a mechanic in town with instructions for its storage and periodic starting. She had read this in the file and drove west on the highway toward the Sacramento Mountains with the map on the seat beside her. The property road was unmarked, a gap in the fence line off a county road, the gap itself indicated on the graph paper map with a small arrow and the word here. She turned in and drove a half-mile on packed caliche and stopped where the road ended at a flat area of gravel and desert grass with a view east across the Tularosa basin that went, it seemed, until the curvature of the earth stopped it. She sat in the truck for a moment and looked at the view. Then she got out and looked at the property. There was almost nothing to see, a low concrete pad roughly 8 feet square, with a steel hatch set into it, a pipe extending from the ground nearby, the well vent, a series of solar panels on a ground mount array to the south, angled precisely, a propane tank, large, buried to its collar, and beside the hatch, a weather enclosure, a small fiberglass cabinet bolted to the pad, with a combination lock. The combination was her birthday. She knew this immediately, the way she had known things about her grandfather without being told them, by inference, by pattern, by the careful reading of a man she had known only through annual birthday cards, but had understood, somehow, to be someone worth understanding. She tried it. It opened. Inside the enclosure was a panel, breakers, indicators, a small display showing battery state of charge. The display read 94%. The system had been running without her for 2 years, and the batteries were at 94%. She found the key for the hatch on the ring, larger than the other key, heavy, steel. She unlocked the hatch. It was counterbalanced and swung open easily, the hinge mechanism smooth. Steps led down, concrete, 18 of them. Lights came on as she descended, led strips along the ceiling of the stairwell, Motion activated. She went down. At the bottom of the stairs was a door, steel, thick, with a mechanical combination dial. The second key was not for this lock. She stood and looked at it. She thought about her grandfather and the way he arranged things in sequences. The assessor's office first, then the file, then the drive, then the hatch, and now this. Each step was a gate. Each gate required something she already had or could figure out. She looked at the dial. 5 digits. She thought about what she knew. The birthday cards, the $5 bills. The birthday, she had tried that on the enclosure. The year the structure was built, 1987 from the records. The year it was completed, he had worked on it until 2015, according to Dolores. She thought about the typed letter in her pocket. She hadn't finished reading it. She took it out and read from the beginning, slowly this time. Petra, if you're reading this, you did what I expected you to do, which is come. I want to explain some things before you drive out there, because I would rather you understand what you're looking at before you look at it. I was a civil defense engineer. I worked for the federal government from 1961 to 1989 on structures and systems designed to protect people in the event of large-scale emergencies. I built shelters, mostly. I became good at it. When I retired, I built one more, on my own land, to my own specifications, because building is what I know how to do, and because I wanted to leave something that would last. The structure was designed to shelter 12 people for 18 months. It is supplied and maintained accordingly. I have kept the supplies current on a rotation schedule. The last rotation was 2018, 2 years before I died. You should audit the perishables when you arrive. The rotation schedule is in the green binder on the reference shelf. The door combination is the load calculation for the ceiling slab. You'll find it on page 4 of the structural drawings, lower right corner. It is the number I am most proud of in 40 years of engineering. She found the structural drawings in the file folder, rolled and rubber banded at the bottom. Page 4, lower right corner, dead load plus live load plus dynamic load factor, 84,720 PSF. She dialed 84720. The door opened. She stood in the doorway and looked at what her grandfather had built. The main room was large. She had known the square footage from the records, but the reality of it was different from the number. 20 feet wide, 60 feet long, with a 12-foot ceiling, the concrete walls smooth and painted a warm off-white that made the space feel less like what it was. Along the left wall was a kitchen, full-sized range, 2 refrigerators, deep pantry shelving stocked with rotation-dated cans and dry goods and water containers. Along the right wall was a workshop, a full bench, tools hung on pegboard in the order of their size and type, a small metal lathe, a drill press. At the far end was a living area, a table with 8 chairs, a couch and 2 armchairs, bookshelves floor to ceiling on the end wall. The lights were on, the same LED system as the stairwell, triggered by her entry, drawing from the battery bank above. The air was clean, filtered, slightly cool, the hum of the ventilation system barely audible from somewhere above the ceiling. She walked the length of the room. Through a doorway on the right was a sleeping area, 6 bunks along one wall, 2 private rooms behind curtains, a bathroom with a composting toilet, and a shower plumbed to the well. Through a doorway on the left was a mechanical room, the ventilation system, the water filtration unit, the battery bank inverters, the transfer switch for the solar array. She spent 20 minutes in the mechanical room, reading labels and tracing systems, and understanding what she was looking at, which she could do, because she was a mechanical engineering student, and this was, at its core, a mechanical engineering project of extraordinary completeness. She went back to the main room and stood at the workbench. On the bench were 4 things, set apart from the tools, arranged in the center of the clean steel surface with a deliberate placement of things that were meant to be found. A journal, hardbound, navy blue, the kind engineers use for field notes. A steel box, small, latched, a manila envelope. An envelope, white, sealed. Petra on the front in his handwriting, smaller than the birthday card writing, more careful. She put the white envelope in her pocket. She opened the journal. The first entry was from April 1987. Site survey complete. Calichet layer at 6 feet, suitable bearing. Water table at 340 feet, well feasible. Oriented the entry hatch name to minimize solar exposure on the concrete pad and reduce thermal signature. Begin excavation next week. W. Voss, P.E. Her grandfather had kept an engineer's journal. The early entries were technical. Daily construction logs, material specifications, problem statements and solutions, sketches in the margins. He had been building the structure alone and with occasional hired help, and he had documented everything with the precision of a man who knew that undocumented work is half-done work. But the journal was not only technical. From the beginning, in the margins of the construction entries were other notes. Smaller, written at different angles, clearly added at different times. Observations, thoughts. The kind of thing a man writes when he has been working alone all day and has something to say and no one to say it to. April 22, 1987. Poured the north wall section today. The concrete crew from Alamogordo, 3 men, good workers, knew their business. The younger one, Miguel, asked me what I was building. I said, a room. He said, a room for what? I said, for whoever needs it. He thought about that and went back to work. I think he understood. July 14, 1988, roofed the main slab today. Compressive strength test on the sample cylinders came back at 6,200 psi, above spec. The structure will outlast me. That was the point. The technical entries continued through 1989, when the main structure was complete. After that, the journal changed character. He had moved in, not to live in it, but to finish it, to supply it, to make it what he had designed it to be. And he had begun writing about people. The journal was a record, in its second half, of his understanding of what shelter meant. He had spent 40 years building shelters for the federal government, most of them never used, most of them now decommissioned or demolished. He had thought about this for a long time. The entries from the 1990s were full of it. March 1994. I have been thinking about the purpose of this structure. I built it as an engineer builds things, to spec, to last, to function as designed. But I have been thinking about who it is for. I have been answering that question wrong. I have been answering it with scenarios, emergencies, disasters, the abstract events that shelter design prepares for. I think the better answer is simpler. It is for whoever needs shelter. That is what shelter is for. And then, beginning in 1997, the entries about Petra's mother. Her mother had been Werner's daughter, estranged from him early, for reasons the journal addressed obliquely and without self-exculpation. He had not been, by his own account, a man who knew how to be a father to a child who needed something other than engineering and precision and $5 bills and birthday cards. He had understood this too late, and he had not known how to say it, and he had instead done what he knew how to do, which was build. November 2001. I heard today that Lena has a daughter. Her name is Petra. I don't know anything else. I sent a card to the last address I have. It came back unopened. I'll try again next year. He had tried again next year. The cards had started reaching her when she was 7, passed through some channel she had never known about. An aunt, maybe, or a postal forward that had persisted. She had received every card. She had saved 5 of them. She had not known he was her grandfather until she was 12, and her mother, in a moment of partial explanation, had said, "That's your grandfather, Werner. He's not bad. He just doesn't know how to be a person, only how to be an engineer." February 2003. The journal entry, I got a card back. Not the card I sent, a card from Petra. She drew a picture of a house on the front with a blue crayon. On the inside she wrote, "Dear grandfather, thank you for the $5. I am 7. I have a dog named Pip. Your granddaughter Petra. I have read this card 17 times. She stopped reading. She sat down on the floor of the main room with the journal in her lap and her back against the workbench and looked at the opposite wall, where the bookshelves ran floor to ceiling, and breathed. She had not known he kept the card. She had not known he had counted the times he read it. She had not known that the birthday cards, which she had received as small, reliable gestures from a distant and abstract person, had been his version of everything he didn't know how to say. She read until the LED lights dimmed, and she realized 2 hours had passed, and the motion sensor had nearly timed out. She stood up, and the lights came back on. She kept reading. The final entries were from 2018. January 2018. Completed the last supply rotation. Everything current. The systems are stable. I tested every circuit last week, ran the generator backup, checked the filtration membranes. The structure is ready. I am not going to be here to see who uses it. I have made my peace with that. February 2018. I have been thinking about Petra. She is 20 years old now, or will be in March. I know from what I've been able to find that she is studying engineering, which I take as a sign, though I don't know what kind. I know she has had difficulty. I know the scholarship fell through, and I know the housing situation is uncertain. I put the maximum I could into the credit union account last month. I don't know if it's enough. It is what I have. March 2018. I want to write something for her that is not technical. I find I don't have different words. What I have is this. I built this because I know how to build things, and I didn't know how to do the other things, the things that would have been better, and I am sorry for that. I am leaving her a structure that will stand for 100 years and cost her nothing to run, and that is mine to leave and hers to use, and I hope she can forgive the man who would rather pour concrete than have a conversation. Because that man loved her as much as he knew how to love anything, which was more than he ever told her, which he knows. She closed the journal. She held it against her chest with both hands and looked at the ceiling, 24 inches of reinforced concrete, designed to carry 84,720 pounds per square foot, which was a number her grandfather was more proud of than anything else in 40 years of engineering. She sat there until she was ready. She was in the mechanical room tracing the ventilation ducting the next morning when she heard the hatch above. She came out to the main room and stood at the base of the stairs as footsteps came down. The man who appeared was somewhere past 60, compact and deliberate, with a canvas jacket and a paper bag and the look of someone who has been maintaining a thing he cares about and is relieved to find someone finally taking custody. "You're Werner's granddaughter," he said. "Petra, Miguel Reyes." He held up the bag. "I've got breakfast burritos from the place in town. Werner's standing order every time I came out here." He had been the younger concrete worker from the 1987 journal entry. He had come back, year after year, to help with the system's maintenance, the solar array, the mechanical room, the well pump, at Werner's request and then beyond it, after Werner's death. because he had been asked to look after the property until someone came. He sat at the table in the main room and ate his burrito and told her about Werner Voss for an hour. About the man he had met in 1987 who had hired him to pour concrete for a project he didn't explain, and paid him fairly, and treated him with the specific respect of a man who believes that work done well is work done well, regardless of who does it. About the years after, the maintenance calls, the systems checks, the annual audit of the supply rotation that Werner had done himself until 2016, and that Miguel had done alone in 2017 and 2018. About the conversations they'd had over breakfast burritos from the same place in town. Conversations that had mostly been about engineering and occasionally, briefly, about the granddaughter Werner was trying to find a way to reach. He talked about your card, Miguel said. The one with the house in blue crayon. He kept it in his field journal. He looked at the journal on the table. It's in there. She found it between the last pages, her card, taped carefully to the inside back cover. The house in blue crayon, crayon careful, and 7 years old. Dear grandfather, thank you for the $5. I am 7. I have a dog named Pip. Your granddaughter Petra, she had forgotten about Pip. Pip had been a good dog. She put the card back carefully. Miguel finished his burrito and looked at the workshop. The lathe needs the chuck re-indicated, he said. I was going to do it last fall and I didn't get to it. I can do that, she said. He looked at her. Mechanical engineering, she said. 3rd year. Before the funding fell through. He nodded. He looked at the room, the workshop, the kitchen, the bookshelves, the 12-foot ceiling. He designed this for 12 people, he said. For 18 months, she said. That's a lot of room for one person. He said it the way an engineer says a thing that is also a question. I know, she said. He finished his coffee and stood. I've got a contact at the community college in Alamogordo, he said. Engineering faculty. Werner knew him. He taught a class there in 2012. Informal thing, structures and systems for local contractors. He looked at her. I think Werner would have wanted me to mention that. I think so too, she said. He left the burritos. He came back the following Tuesday with the contact's name and a phone number and a set of sockets she needed for the lathe re-indication that he'd picked up at the hardware store without mentioning he was going to. If you've made it this far into Petra's story, hit subscribe, because what happens next is the part I've been waiting to tell you. The letter from the property development company arrived on a Friday, forwarded from Morrow Wells. 2 pages, from a company called High Desert Land Partners. The argument was an access easement claim. The company asserted that its adjacent parcel had a prescriptive easement right across the Voss property, established through decades of access across the Calichet Road, and that this easement had not been disclosed in the tax auction and constituted a material defect in the title transfer. The letter offered to settle the easement claim by purchasing the Voss parcel outright. The offer was $95,000. The man who called was named Garrett. He was businesslike and unhurried. The specific unhurried of someone who believes time is on his side. The prescriptive easement doctrine is clear in New Mexico, he said. Continuous, open, and hostile use for 10 years establishes an easement by prescription. The road across your property has been used by the adjacent parcel owners for. The road is entirely within the Voss parcel, Petra said. She had spent 2 evenings with the property survey, which was in the file, and which she had read with the attention she gave to engineering drawings, which was considerable. It doesn't cross the property line. It terminates at the pad. There's no access to your client's parcel via that road, and there never has been. The prescriptive easement would require use across my land to reach a destination beyond it. The road doesn't do that. Garrett was quiet for a moment. I'd need to review the survey, he said. Page 3, she said. The road terminus is marked. It's 8 feet from the property line. Your client has been using a road on Voss land without an easement, which is trespass, not prescription, and trespass does not create easement rights in New Mexico. There was a longer pause. The offer stands, he said. His voice had changed register slightly. I understand, she said. The property isn't for sale. She did not hear from Garrett again. She called Dolores at the assessor's office and mentioned the access issue, and Dolores said she was aware of High Desert Land Partners and their methods, and thanked Petra for handling it herself. The way she said it suggested this was not the first time. That evening she opened the white envelope. She sat at the table in the main room with the engineer's journal in front of her, and the technical drawings rolled on the chair beside her, and the LED lights steady overhead. And she opened the envelope the way she opened everything, attending to the object itself, not rushing past it to the content. Petra, I am going to try to do something I have not been good at, which is say what I mean without the engineering. I am sorry I was not your grandfather in the ways that mattered when it mattered. I was your grandfather in the ways I knew how to be, which were limited and mostly expressed through annual cards and $5 bills, which I understand is not enough, and which I could not figure out how to supplement with anything that would have actually helped. I am aware this is a failure. I am recording it as such. What I can tell you is that I thought about you more than I told you, which was not at all, so more than not at all is a low bar. But it is the true thing. When I heard you were studying engineering, I sat with that for a long time. I don't know if it means you inherited something from me or found your own way to it. Either way, I was glad. The structure is 2,400 square feet, which is too much for one person. I built it for 12 because emergencies do not happen to one person at a time. I want you to use it the way I built it, which is to say, for whoever needs it, when they need it, without requiring them to deserve it first. That is the only design criterion I care about. The solar array will run indefinitely with minimal maintenance. The panel degradation schedule is in the green binder, and you should see less than 0.5% annual output decline for the first 25 years. The well pump will need its seals replaced in 2028. The part number is in the maintenance log. The battery bank will need cell balancing every 3 years. Miguel knows how to do this and will show you. I am aware that practical instructions are not the same as the other things I should have said. I am saying them anyway, because they are what I have, and because knowing how the thing works is not nothing. What I want you to know that is not practical is this. I built this structure to last 100 years. I did not build it for scenarios. I built it for you, and for whoever comes after you, and for whoever needs to be somewhere safe, which is more people than you think and fewer people than fear suggests. The load calculation on the ceiling slab is 84,720 pounds per square foot. I have never built anything stronger. It will hold. Your grandfather, Werner Voss, P.E., she read it twice. She folded it carefully along its lines and held it against her chest and looked at the ceiling above her. 24 inches of reinforced concrete, 84,720 pounds per square foot, which would hold. She understood, sitting in the room he had built, what he had been trying to say in the only language he had. An engineer's love is not expressed in words. It is expressed in load calculations and maintenance schedules and design criteria that account for every contingency, including the one where his granddaughter arrives alone and needs somewhere safe to be. The ventilation system hummed. The LED lights were steady. The battery bank upstairs was at 94%. She sat there until she was ready. She enrolled at the community college in Alamogordo in the fall. Miguel's contact was a man named Dr. Arrieta, who taught structures and systems, and who had known Werner Voss from the 2012 class, and who looked at Petra's transcript and her work history and asked her 3 technical questions that she answered correctly, and said he would see her in September. She drove the 40 minutes each way in the truck, which ran as it had been maintained to run, which was without complaint. She kept the bunker supplied and calibrated. She worked through the green binder methodically, auditing the perishables, updating the rotation schedule, learning each system the way her grandfather had documented it, from first principles, understanding not just what it did but why it did it, and what would happen when it didn't. She rechambered the lathe and found, doing it, that she was good at it, the same way she had found she was good at the other things she'd taught herself in the years since high school. Through her hands, through patience, through the willingness to be wrong until she was right. In November, she got a call through the community college. A student, 20, who was living in his car in the college parking lot because the dormitory wait list was 6 months and his lease had ended. Dr. Arrieta had given him her number and said she might know a situation. His name was Tom's. He had a car full of textbooks and a sleeping bag rated to 20 degrees and the expression of someone who was managing, but only barely. She drove him out to the property. She showed him the hatch and the stairs and the combination, not 84720, which was hers. She changed it to something he could remember, and she told him he could change it to something else when he was ready. She showed him the bunk room and the kitchen and the workshop and the mechanical room, and in the mechanical room she showed him every system and explained what each one did, the way her grandfather had documented it and the way she had learned it. He stood in the middle of the main room and looked at the ceiling and the walls and the bookshelves and the workshop and said nothing for a moment. "Why?" he said. She thought about the journal entry from 1994, "It is for whoever needs shelter. That is what shelter is for. My grandfather built it for whoever needs it," she said. That was the design criterion. Everything else was secondary. Tom's looked at her. "He built this," he said, "and he'd never met you?" "He built it," she said, "because he didn't know how to do anything else that would last." Garrett from High Desert Land Partners came in December. He came in his personal truck without the company name on it. He stood at the top of the concrete pad and looked at the solar array and the view east across the Tularosa Basin and did not say anything about easements. He had a box of supplies in the truck bed. Canned goods, the practical kind. The kind that would fit the rotation schedule if you knew what a rotation schedule was, which suggested he had thought about this more than she would have expected. He set the box on the pad without explanation. He looked at the view for a long time. The Tularosa Basin in December was the color of old bone in the afternoon light. The white sands visible as a white line on the southern horizon, the mountains behind her going blue with distance. "My grandfather homesteaded the adjacent parcel in 1931, he said. "We've been fighting over water rights and fence lines with everybody adjacent for 90 years. He looked at the pad, the hatch, the solar array. "Werner Voss never once filed a complaint against us. We gave him plenty of cause." "I know," she said. She had read the property file. Garrett paused. "He just let things go. He was building something," Petra said. "He didn't have time for the other things." Garrett looked at the hatch. "What is it?" he said. "What did he build?" She considered this. "A room," she said, "for whoever needs it." Garrett was quiet. He looked at the box of supplies on the pad. "I thought about what you said," he said, "about the trespass. You were right." "I know," she said. He nodded once and got in his truck. The box of supplies went into the rotation stock. She logged them on the schedule and noted the date and moved on. She found it in the green binder, in the back, behind the maintenance logs. She had been updating the panel degradation projection, recalculating from the current output readings, when she turned the last page of the log and found an envelope taped to the inside back cover. Her name on the front. A second envelope she had not found before. Inside, a single index card in her grandfather's handwriting. Petra, there is a second journal. It is in the mechanical room, behind the inverter panel on the right side. The panel lifts off, 4 bolts, 10 memory socket. I didn't leave it in the main room because it is the one that has the parts I didn't know how to say, and I wanted you to find it after you'd been here a while. You'll know when you're ready. If you're reading this, you're ready. WV. She got the 10 menomine socket from the workshop. She went to the mechanical room. She found the 4 bolts and removed the panel. Behind it was a journal, identical to the first, hardbound, navy blue, and beside it, carefully sealed in a Ziploc bag, a small stack of birthday cards. Her birthday cards. All of them. Every one she had ever sent him, starting with the blue crayon house and going forward through $7 gift cards and handmade cards from years when she had no money for. Stamps, and she had found a workaround she couldn't now remember, and then the years when the cards had stopped because she hadn't had an address to send them to, and didn't know if he had one either. He had every card. He had kept every one. She sat down on the floor of the mechanical room with the cards in her lap and the second journal beside her, and the ventilation system humming above, and the battery bank inverters clicking quietly through their cycles. She sat there for a long time. She was not ready to read the second journal yet. She put it on the workbench in the main room where she would see it every day until she was. In February, when the high desert winter had settled into its clear cold and the solar array was running at peak efficiency in the thin mountain air, Petra sat at the work table in the main room after dinner with her structures textbook and her notes and the LED lights steady overhead. Tom's was in the workshop, working on something she hadn't asked about, the sound of it regular and quiet. Dr. Arrieta had suggested a fabrication project for his structures class, and he had apparently decided to do it here, where the tools were. She had $41 in her checking account, and $28,000 more in the credit union, and a full supply rotation, and a solar array running at 94% efficiency, and a mechanical engineering program she was passing with the grades of someone who had always understood the material and only needed the right circumstances to demonstrate it. She opened the second journal. The first entry was from 1992. I've been keeping the engineering journal for 5 years. I need a different one for the rest. This is the rest. I am not good at the rest. I am aware of this. I am keeping this journal as practice for the things I don't know how to say, in case I ever get the chance to say them. Petra is 4 years old. I have not met her. I sent a card last March. I don't know if it arrived. I thought about her today when I was retorquing the anchor bolts on the main slab. Some work you do for someone you haven't met yet. And you do it carefully, because they deserve careful work even before you know them. Maybe especially before. She stopped. She put her hand flat on the page. From the workshop, the sound of Tom's working. From outside, the wind across the high desert, which was its own sound, dry and continuous, and carrying the cold of the mountains. She read the entry again. Some work you do for someone you haven't met yet, and you do it carefully, because they deserve careful work even before you know them. She was 21 years old. Her grandfather had built her something before he knew her, and had maintained it for 30 years against the day she would need it, and had been right that she would need it, and had been right about almost everything except the conversation, which he had never figured out how to have, and which he had finally, in the end, written down. She turned the page. She had time. The lights were on. The air was clean, and the ceiling above her would hold for 100 years. She read,